So we are on our second video for arithmetic series. We are going to explore the use of sigma notation as opposed to the formula and kind of connect the two. So sigma notation is also called summation notation. And I just want to highlight some of these different pieces here. So this means you're starting with A1, this n equals 1. And then the top number means to end, the top number is your number of terms. It's not your last term, it's how many terms you have in your series. So that's key. A lot of people mess that up and then they get this huge number for the summation. And then inside here, you're going to write your explicit formula. So we get more practice writing those explicit formulas, which you were probably getting sick of doing on the first day with the arithmetic sequence. So our first one, we have a nice finite series. I think I actually stole this from the front page. We have our A1 is 2. Oops. And our common difference is also 2, because we're going up by 2 each time. So if we're doing the summation, we're going to say n equals 1. And you're always going to start with 1 if you're writing it yourself, because you have your first term. Then we're going to write our explicit formula. You don't have to write an equals for this. We're just going to write 2 plus 2 times n minus 1. You can simplify this, but you don't have to. You can leave it in this format. And then on top, we're going to write how many terms we have. So on top is our n. In this case, we have n is equal to 4. So we're going to put 4 up here. Now, although this one isn't, it's one you can add up on your own and get the sum to be 20, I will also show you how to plug this into your calculator. So if you go over to your calculator, I just have to remember exactly which shortcut this is, so give me a second. If you hit alpha window has the shortcut here. And there's another place that you can get this information. So we're going to select the summation. We're not actually able to put n, so I'm going to put x in here equals 1. It just makes it easier to type in. I'm going to put the 4 on top, and then I'll put my expression in here. Make sure you use your own parentheses in here. You have to keep the entire expression within that outer set of parentheses. So notice on this, you have a parenthesis surrounding your entire expression. And then when you hit enter, it will give you your sum. So this is an alternative option. The other option with the calculator, if you go down to math and you scroll down, instead of alpha window, summation is 0. If you hit enter, that will also bring it up if you can't find it on the shortcut. Okay, for our next example, it's infinite. So since we don't know how many terms, we're going to actually keep the exact same sum, but throw a little infinity symbol on top. So we can't actually find the sum for this because it's going to be this huge number, but I can come up with the expression. So this would be my full answer here, whereas up top, here's the sigma notation, and then here's the actual sum. Since I can't find the sum because it's infinite on that one, I'm going to leave that part out. Now our last one, we're missing our n value. So we have A1 is 10. We have our common difference is 5. And we have our an. So very similar to a previous example we did with the sum formula, we still need to figure out our n, because that's what we're putting on the top of our notation. So a common mistake actually on your sigma notation is that people would put the 100 up here, the an. We don't want that up there. We want how many terms we have. So I need to use my explicit formula, which I'm going to need anyway. That's what I'm going to put here. Again, if you want to simplify it, great, but you don't have to. You can use the explicit formula not simplified right in there. And I know that AN is 100, so I'm going to plug 100 in here. Finish my solving work. I might as well show the steps because I have enough space. So we get n is 19. This is the number that you're always putting on the top. So no matter if you're doing sigma notation or you're doing the other sum formula, just to remind you, the other sum formula, you need n for both of them. In this case, your n is in the numerator here, and here the n is up top. Okay, and then if I want to find the sum for this, now I can go again into the calculator and do, well, I actually already have it there, but I'm going to hit alpha window to remind you where to get it. Or you hit your math button and get it there. Use your x. We're starting at 1. We're going to the 19th term. And then it's 10 plus 5 times x instead of n minus 1. You can use n, it's just a little more annoying because you have to hit alpha n, and the n button is right above the log, so it's easier to just pick the x. And we get 1045 for our sum. And our last two examples involve expanding. This is very important to review before the quiz and the test, because I know for a fact you're going to be comfortable putting it in the calculator, but things will get messed up when you're looking to expand it. So expanding means we're going to start with A1, and we're going to go to A5, A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5. And I'm actually going to change the second example so that I don't start at the first term to give you a totally different option for this. So I'm going to start with A1. So that means I'm plugging in 1 into here, and I get an answer of 1. And then if I plug in, so A1 is going to be 3 minus 2 times 1. A2 is going to be 3 minus 2 times 2, which is going to give me negative 1. And I keep that process, A3, 3 minus 2 times 3, which will give me negative 3. And I'm not going to write out the last two. You don't need to write this out down here. But this is the expanded format. So, oh, I put commas there. Glad I did that, kind of. You should not have commas. You should just have plus minus signs in between. So since these are all subtraction, I'll just keep it as subtraction. No commas. Just adding, subtracting in between. Now it's up to you how you want to find the sum. You already have the sequence or the series all written out, so you could just add it up. Or you go over to the calculator and use the summation button option. Then for this last example, I'm going to change the bottom part here, make this n is equal to 3. So what that means when we expand it is we're going to do A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, and A9. So this means for this one, start at A3, end at A9. The previous one was start at A1, end at A5. So we're not starting with the first term. We're going to plug in A3 and do 6 plus 1/2 times 3 to get 7.5 for our first term. And then we would do A4, 6 plus 1/2 times 4. That's going to give us 8. And then we're going, because it's adding, we're going to put plus signs in between everything, no commas. Adding would be plus. So series has to have plus minus signs in between. And then once you notice the pattern, it actually is pretty easy. You don't even have to plug this stuff in to see what your terms are going to be. So the expanded version means to write it out. You don't have to do all this extra work. You can just put in the expanded version that I have in the box. And then you're also finding the sum. So again, whether you add up the numbers you already have written out or you use the sigma notation in the calculator is your choice.